G'day everyone, welcome along to the Toon podcast. Joining me tonight for a bit of a look back on some eventful week, shall we say, in the transfer market, the Forest game that's just been, and a quick jet ahead to the weekend's game against Spurs at St James Park is Lee. How you doing, Lee?
I'm good, thanks, Mark. Hello, everyone. Sorry, I've been pressing some buttons in, getting up the wrong banners. Great start. No, I'm good, thanks. 5 o'clock start again in the morning for the game, so just towards the very end of that game, I was thinking this is going to be a long day. But Thank God we got the results. So as you know, as we keep saying, it helps the day go by, doesn't it? How are you doing?
Yeah, for sure. It's nothing like having an early kickoff, losing a game, and then being depressed for the entire day. Especially when you can sit there and watch the drama unfold on social media all through the day as the meltdowns begin, which we've had a fair few of. So without sort of diving into it too much, I think it's worthwhile just having a little bit of a quick chat about what's been going on in the world of Newcastle United and the transfer market, or lack thereof, so to speak. So there's obviously been a massive, long-standing shit show of a transfer window when it comes to Mark Gahey from Crystal Palace. The on again, off again, on again, off again. Let's get some more money out of them before we agree to sell them and run everything into the papers by Mr. Parrish. There's definitely I think most fans are getting a bit fed up of the saga now. We've kind of been back in. It doesn't appear that there's a hell of a lot more going on in the background either. At least we're not getting the usual media leaks, which sometimes works in our favor, sometimes doesn't. What have you made of the entire deal, entire sort of Mark Gahey saga anyway?
Well, I was kind of spouting off a bit in our chat today about this, wasn't I? I've had the feeling from probably after they rejected the first bid that they didn't really want to sell Gahey to us, like specifically us, and probably any other team that they might think is around about their level. Whether we are or not around their level, they might still think that they are. They had a blistering finish to the season last year. They've picked up some real talent, and they might be saying, you know what, let's attack this season. And the likes of Newcastle maybe are the level that we're going to aim for. And I just think, and I've got nothing to base this on, it's just one of those kind of gut feelings that they've basically been dragging their feet deliberately throughout this entire process until I think probably the end of the transfer window itself in a couple of days or whatever it is, day and a half. Either because they want to keep him, but also affect our transfer business by sort of leading us on, if you like, and then just at the end going, nah, change our mind. And then we've basically spent our load trying to do that without doing any other business. I mean, there's still time, but bloody hell, it's close. You'd think that it would have to either be a panic deal right now if we were going to do other business, or something sitting there ready to go. We need to press the button, but it just feels a lot like, and again, I've got nothing to base this on, but it just feels a little bit like they just had no intention, and probably they were hoping that some other team would come in, like a Sky 6 team might come in with a different kind of bid or a similar bid even, and they'd be more palatable to them to sell to that kind of team that is a level above, rather than perhaps what the CS has, which they may see that we aren't a level above, or we are kind of within grasp, if you like, based on how they finished last season. So I don't know. I've just had this feeling that it was never, for a little while now, it was never going to happen. We always keep hearing Gahey is keen on the idea, or at least he's open to the idea. I mean, whatever that means, open to the idea. Like, that's not really coming out and saying I definitely want this move. It's not like saying I am keen on this move. It's just like it could be like a oh yeah. That's,
the talk is
oh yeah.
The talk's definitely that he has agreed personal terms, so that won't be a sticking point as long as the clubs can agree a fee. The thing that I've also seen raised is Parrish has a a track record of not wanting to sell players until he gets what he deems as market value, even if that means that the player will run down a contract and they leave for a much reduced fee. He doesn't want to be seen to be letting players go on the cheap, so to speak. But at the same time, that kind of like, it lends itself to that, the feeling that he has been trying to generate this bidding war throughout the summer window by his little media excerpts and Sky Sports interviews and stuff like that, which is a bit petty, really.
It's entirely his prerogative to do this however he wants to. It's up to us to put in a bid with the right terms that get that deal done. Now, so the onus is on us. It's not on their onus to sell him. By all accounts, they've already flogged Dudar Anderson off to Fulham. I understand that's already gone through. From what Jack was saying earlier on. So they've got 30 million for him already. That's great for PSR. I believe they've got some defender that Craig fancied from the continent that they've got potentially lined up if this deal goes through. And it's still yet might. We have to be clear about that. It's not like it's failed or anything. It could still go through. But I just, whether Parish wants to be like a Spurs chairman Daniel Levy type, where he's like hard as nails and loves that kind of reputation as a haggler and as a hard nut to crack and all that. Whatever. That's up to him. If we want Gehi as much as we think we do by all the ad nauseum Chronicle articles that keep coming out like 3 times a day saying absolutely nothing but the same stuff over and over again, if we are as keen as they suggest we are, and we can afford it, we should be able to get this deal done. But that just kind of lends itself a little bit more to me thinking, does Parish even want to sell them to us? Like, do they need the money? If they don't need the money,
well, they've already got the Elise money as well, so I don't think they're skint and they need to sell.
And he's got 2 years, so they could do all this again.
2 years contract, exactly. Yeah. So for me, it's like, I fully agree with you. There's absolutely nothing, and I don't want to go down the road of being those fan bases that say, oh, well, they should just sell to us for what we want to pay. It's like, no, it's like the selling club's prerogative to let somebody go for what they deem a sensible value, just like we weren't going to let Bruno go on the cheap either. That's entirely feasible. It does feel a little bit to me like we're putting all of our eggs in one basket and leaving things very, very late, which is a little bit of concern. And it does lend itself to a few of the conspiracy theories about the fact that we don't actually have the money or we don't want to spend the money this summer. So we're kind of dragging this out as long as possible to say, well, look at what we tried and we still couldn't get a deal done. But, who knows? So look, the thing for me, though, is like the week itself has been pretty hectic. And it got to a head when Alan Shearer tweeted out something that I think we've discussed in the group chat was there's something feels off at the club right now. There doesn't seem to be that jovial, like that all in it together. Everyone's pulling in the same direction. Everyone's pleased to be there. Now, how much of this is down to media speculation? How much of this is down to fan speculation? Or how much is just down to the fact that we've had a bit of an upheaval summer? I don't think the sales for PSR reasons of Minte and Anderson have gone down particularly well with the fans. I don't know how it got to that state in the first place. Amanda Staveley's gone. She's left. We've now got a brand new director of football in. Howe's kind of intimated that he wasn't too sure about his position and the dynamics of that relationship when he was quizzed about the England role, which that's been hanging over our shoulder as well. So it could just, do you think it's just a case of like we've got all of this stuff that's happened all at the one time and it's not all positive, and it's just kind of like, things are a little bit flat because of that. Things are a little bit uncertain and everyone's reading more into it than there is? Or do you think that, things just don't seem to be kind of like sort of gelling at the moment?
I think, well, just on that last point, I mean, anyone who's seen the last 3 performances would probably say this team isn't quite clicking just yet.
Yeah.
And the things you haven't mentioned amongst all of that noise is that we went to Japan, is that we had the England actual Euro competition, Anthony Gordon getting his head turned potentially. Then his best mate gets sold behind his back. Well, not behind his back, sorry, but he gets sold while he's not around, and he doesn't even get a chance to say goodbye, as far as anyone can tell. I mean, you looked at Ando today at this game, and he was like longingly looking across to the away end.
Yeah.
And
I was going to bring that up later on, yeah, but
I'm sure, yeah, we'll get to that.
He looked like a lost little puppy dog, like sort of abandoned on the side of the road, just going, "Oh, why are you leaving me? Why?"
Yeah, and it's like, see you later. But like, you can take all that on board, then add in, and Ando never got a chance to say goodbye either. So then that kind of puts the fans' noses out a little bit, especially when we all thought he was going to be the next greatest thing. I mean, whether he will or won't, I don't know. But he had a pretty good day today, I thought. In the middle. But then you put in all the stuff about that you just mentioned about Mandy and Merdad leaving. That seemed very quick as well. She's been saying in some interviews that it was never the plan to leave at 3 years. That doesn't really indicate whether or not it was always the plan that she would leave at some point within a certain amount of years. She was only in the management team. She wasn't partially an owner, but she didn't have the money to invest. That's why her shares were getting diluted. And, end of the day, the club wanted to go in a different direction. But that is bound to have an impact on the players, because there was that rapport. There was that personal touch. We've touched on this before. It was her in particular as well. Like, Merdad obviously did his things, but it was really Mandy who was the one who kind of like the mother of the team in some ways. Like she'd get in on the photographs sometimes. She was well involved with the women's team, and she was that kind of friendly face. And I think if we wouldn't be having this conversation if the first three results had been, I mean, they've been good results, but if there had been better performances, probably wouldn't be having this conversation. We'd be all like, well, none that matters. So in some sense, I think we are looking for explanations as to why this team hasn't quite clicked from the very start. And somewhere along there, we kind of might forget about all that mess that's just gone on over summer. It's been mental.
Yeah.
It's been a mad, mad summer. It has.
No, for sure. So let's have a quick look. Well, we'll have a look. Can't guarantee it's going to be quick because there's a fair bit of stuff to talk about. Not necessarily just the game, but the stuff around it. But before we actually get into the game itself, I want to touch on the absolute shit show that is the Carabao Cup draw for this round. For the next round. I have no idea how we've got to the point where certain clubs are now just guaranteed a home game no matter what, and they're guaranteed not to meet each other, and how that's actually allowed. There should be no such thing as seeding in a domestic cup competition. It's an absolute disgrace. I'm literally looking at that this morning, and I had not seen anything about that before this morning's game when I was watching it. And then on social media, it started to like trickle through that, have you seen the cup draw fiasco? What's all this about? And rightly so, everyone's gone completely nuts about it. But I'm looking at it going like, what the, like, holy flirking schnitt? Like what the hell's going on with this? How is this allowed? Like, what was your reaction to that alone in terms of how is that allowed?
Well, look, well, we all know why it's allowed. That's because they want the bigger teams to be in the competition further down the line. And that's literally all it is. It's about money. It's about viewership. It's about money. That's all it is. We all know that's the case. Apparently, this had been announced as the new format back in May or something. I'd seen one or two comments from people who would... look, it passed me by because I was sitting there thinking, what the hell's going on here? Like, so hold on. The first four teams in Europe, who aren't even playing this week, by the way, and they don't even find out their fixtures until I think tomorrow.
And always play their kids anyway.
Like, but why couldn't they have played this week? They're not in Europe right now. Why aren't they playing this week? It's just an absolute nonsense. But to seed it, to so blatantly make it favourable to the European teams, which are always 9 times out of 10 going to be the Sky Six, plus maybe one other like us or Villa. It's farcical. And like we've had 8 friggin' away draws in a row or something. And these guys are getting a free home game just chucked into their laps. It's like, come on, guys.
That was it. Like it's the fact that it's seeded is bad enough, but the fact that they've made 2 out of 3 of their games a guaranteed home game, like, sure, okay, seed them and make sure it's a draw, but just do it fairly at least. Like, don't like bias it in one direction. So, well, we're guaranteed to get like an Old Trafford game. And it just so happens that Man City, Man United, Arsenal, and Liverpool are the 4 home teams that happen to be drawn out randomly.
Yeah, imagine
imagine that.
everyone's surprised.
The
Well,
cold
if
ball's working quite well.
the thing is, I don't like the League Cup much anyway. It's as you've just touched on there. Most of these teams don't particularly want to be in it
Yeah,
anyway. They've got more important things like going for the league, trying to get the Champions League, or actually in the Champions League in Europe and all the rest of it. The League Cup is like the poor cousin. It always has been, or at least it has been for a long time anyway. But the one thing about it is that it gives you that 5 games or something to get to Wembley and potentially secure yourself a place in Europe next season. So it has value. It's valuable, but it's just not a very interesting competition to me. Otherwise, I don't. When I say it like that, it doesn't make any sense. But it's never really been a competition I like. But then they go and do this shit,
yeah.
and it's like, dudes, I don't like this competition that much in the first place, and here you are, sucking off the Sky Six. Like, dude, what are you doing, man? This is ridiculous. Just fucking draw them out of a hat or something,
They just
Mad.
it couldn't be more blatantly biased if they tried. And I guess the only other thing would be they're probably going to try and bring them in at the quarterfinal stage or something. So it's like the top 4 are guaranteed to sort of just enter at the quarterfinals so that they're there and they don't have to play anymore.
They could have done this last season when we could have benefited.
Well, they could have,
from it.
exactly. And this is what's pissing most of the Newcastle fans off is that we had all away games. We had all like Chelsea, Man U, Man City. Yeah. And it's like, well, okay, how come it was all right for us to have to play all those teams? Yet now, while we were playing PSG in the group of death and all of the other tough games that we had, the mind just boggles. So yeah, let's just put that aside. We are through. We never meant to do anything easy. It's safe to say Newcastle United do not like making our lives easy. It's always a little bit of a heart-stopping moment watching them, especially at stupid o'clock in the morning. I think Jack's smartwatch was telling him to calm down at one point. So
yeah.
But look, I mean, we've got through. We've scraped a draw in regular time, and then, unlike us, we seem to be winning a couple of penalty shootouts recently, and go through 4-3 winners on the penalty shootout. Firstly, look, before we start to get into some of the details, it's good that we're starting to kind of grind out some of these results, wouldn't you say?
Well, it's good we didn't lose. I mean, we obviously, when you go up 1-0 so early, and then you've got to basically battle the rest of the game, because everyone goes, "Oh, brilliant start," but a lot of times it's not. You get it in early, and then you have that natural vulnerability straight afterwards, and gives the team, the opposition, the impetus to come at you a little bit. But yeah, no, look, I mean, we are seemingly penalty kings at the minute. Although Craig did remind you about last season, I still can't even remember that one. But yeah, we didn't win that one. But nonetheless,
the penalty shootout that we lost in the League Cup last season.
Yeah, my memory is not great. But look, we beat Spurs in the preseason. I'm counting it. We've just beaten Forest in the penalties again. I'm kind of glad there wasn't any extra time as well, mind you, because that's. We've had to play a bloody game this Wednesday, this midweek. Spurs aren't.
No,
they're in Europe, so they get like a freaking week off for some reason. Like they're not even in Europe yet. But
and an easy draw, as we just said.
But screw us, you know what I mean? So they get to have this nice, long, relaxing week to prepare and everything, and we've got to run around like idiots and pick up injuries again. But we managed to get through.
Let's dive in on that then.
Thankfully, we got through.
It could not be a better start to the game. It was great to see like the link-up play that led to that opening goal. We basically took it in control in our own, like right on our own goal square, really. Tonali starts to move off, puts it through to Almiron, puts it through to Isak, and then Willock runs onto the ball. Isak has a shot on goal. Keeper makes a decent save, to be fair, but I would expect Isak in top form to be burying that. But it bounces out kindly. The on-rushing Willock straight in the back of the net, 1-0 inside 20 seconds. Could not wish for a better start. And then Willock goes on a couple more runs, which shows just what we missed last season by not having him around, before once again showing that he's made of glass and he's off injured. What did you make of the opening goal? But more importantly, how good is Willock when he's fit, and how disappointing is it that he's injured again?
Oh, Willock's really good, but we just don't ever seem to get that. There was a period some season or two ago where he was fit for a few games and he was looking really sharp. And he does that brilliant run into the box late, which I always like to see. Ideally to pick up things like these loose scraps from the keeper. By the way, the keeper should have caught that. But having said that, it did sort of bounce a little bit just in front of him. But I've said it 1,000 times. If it's at your bloody hand height, just catch the fucking thing. Don't palm it across an open goal face, right, on your debut, and just let some guy just tap it in. I mean, he went on to have a pretty good game in fairness, but and he's freaking ginormous.
He is huge.
And that was his first touch. So like, I'm being kind of harsh, but like, stop fucking parrying the ball. Just catch the bloody ball. You'd avoid all these situations. Anyway, I thought Tonali's pace, that was like a born of frustration. I think he was belting. So as Willock's running along, I think so was Tonali, unless that was the one afterwards, where he was running like a friggin' Linford Christie, man. He was burning up the grass. But Willock, he has that ability to arrive late. It wasn't as easy a tap in either because it was bobbling around a little bit. And I think he had to sort of adjust himself slightly, didn't he, to kind of...
Seemed to bounce up at him. So he was kind of like a little bit an awkward height to kind of tap it in. And
which is why...
he kind of like fell through the ball as opposed to a controlled tap in.
Which is why he kind of ended up on his arse. But I mean, it was a lightning fast start. Nice touch from, I think Willock started right at the very start, and then
I think he got the ball back
through the middle, and then legged all the way along. So the effort was there. The determination is brilliant. That's kind of what we need, because we've had this kind of slow, indifferent start. And then the challenge, it was a weird one because he gets barreled into, and like it was a pretty bad challenge. The guy's obviously not getting anywhere near the ball. He's literally just trying to sort of do Willock a little bit. He hits him on his right hand thigh really heavily, but it's his left thigh that seems to be the problem. And I shared a picture in our chat. When it actually, the contact hits, his left leg's not even really on the floor either. So there must be some kind of twist in action or a strain or stretch or something that's caused this to happen. Our boy Keegs, Dr. Keegan, he reckons it's a quad. I haven't seen any confirmation, but the general theory is that it's some kind of quad injury. If it is a quad, a bad one, that's going to be 6 weeks or so. So like, you could see he was devastated when he was coming off. He was proper gutted, and you have to feel sorry for the poor lad. He starts like that,
so well to get back up.
20 seconds to get a goal, and then 15 minutes later, he's buggered for the next 6 weeks. I mean, how do you mentally deal with that? He was devastated.
I think we thought at the time it might have just been a corky, and I said this on social media, so I'll for all of our non-Australian friends out there who are listening or watching, a corky is what an AFL player will get. It's basically a dead leg. It's a very Australian term. I didn't realize it was just an Australian term until somebody basically went, what's that then? So yes, a corky, if you ever refer to that, it's a dead leg, and apparently it's not. So Dr. Keegs is on the case. Well, he is basically telling us it is a quad injury. So let's see. Hopefully, fingers crossed, not too bad.
Yeah, I mean, it can't be a corky because it was on the other leg.
Yeah, exactly.
So can't be.
So one of the big talking points of the game, I guess, would be Tonali back in the starting lineup, back in the side, full stop, allowed to play after a 10-month ban for gambling. Let's not go down any of that route. After Eddie straight back to the was it Louise Taylor, I think it was, that
the Mackham
decided to go in hard and be very inappropriate about the whole thing. Rightly so, shot down. But look, it's so good to see him back. He was obviously pretty emotional after the game, but what did you make of the 60 minutes he had under his belt before he obviously started to get a little bit puffed on the ground and needed to get substituted? For me, his first touch is absolutely sublime. His first touch passing is something that I think will catch a lot of teams out until they realize that's going to happen.
I thought he was, I mean, considering he's not kicked a ball in 12 months in a competitive game that matters, he's done training but not a proper game. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. His vision's there. He kind of He can make space for himself, which is always a good sign that he's got the intelligence to take up a position. But he can swivel, he can turn, he can pivot, he can pass it forward quickly when he wants to, like to Almiron to set up the goal. He's got pace. Apparently, he was like really fast in the Champions League a couple of seasons ago before he signed for us. So what's interesting is I think the team's going to have to get used to playing with him because I mean, all right, they've done training, but like in a match environment, things are different. You're not playing against yourselves anymore in training. You're playing against other people, and I think there'll be a settling in period for the rest of the team, as much as for him to get his fitness up, where they will have to get used to the idea of where he's going to be and what he's going to do. A lot of that they'll probably understand from training, but I suspect there'll be some elements of it because he's like a new signing in air quotes that will necessitate a certain amount of time for that understanding to gel and to form. So it was promising. I'm glad he got 60 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't think he'll play against Spurs because I think that might be too much in 3 days or 4 days for someone who's just coming back. Mind you, I haven't said that. Like I said on the last podcast, he looks ripped.
Yeah.
Ripped boy. Like, he's...
I don't think he'll start, but I'd be very surprised if he doesn't make an appearance off the bench.
I think he'll make an appearance. It might depend on how the game's going. Like if we're getting absolutely shafted, they might just bring him on late just to get a run out and get some minutes in the legs. If there's something there for us to win, maybe a little bit sooner, who knows? I think he'll come on as a sub most likely, but I don't see him starting. But I thought for a guy who we haven't seen and he hasn't played for a long time, I thought he was brilliant. Like what more could he ask for him? He almost scored as well. I mean,
he almost scored. I was going to bring that up as well. So he's had that chance. That would have just been the absolute perfect dream return for him. The one thing that really surprises me with his passing though is how vicious he is with it. Like there's no kind of half-assing or under-hitting his passes. And I think, as you said, the players around him in his own team are going to have to get used to the fact that he's going to ping balls into them at pace, leaving no questions about who's getting the ball. And they're going to have to get that control because it's going to be very easy for them to like miscontrol those balls as they're coming in, go to trap it. I mean, God, you could imagine Shola, he traps it further than an elephant would kick it. But it's one of those things. Like we've got better quality in there now, and I think it's going to really sort of help that momentum build from the back and playing almost that quarterback role, but even getting into that forward momentum. So look, again, as we said, look, we had a couple more chances. Their keeper pulled off a few good saves in the first half to keep it at 1-0, which was a little bit disappointing. They started to get back into the game sort of towards the middle to the end of that first half. On the 50-minute mark, Jota Silva, basically Poundland,
like Jacketish.
Poundland Grealish, as was mentioned this morning on socials. I think it was Charlotte Robson from Truth Faith that said it, and he does look like it as well. But yeah, so he's basically pinged a shot right into the top corner off the crossbar. Wasn't a lot in it in the build-up. You were doing your nut on our group chat because of A, Hall turning his back, and B, not being much defense in his face.
Well, yeah, look, in the team's defense, not that I need it from me, but in the team's defense, what I didn't see initially as the ball comes through is it actually takes a bit of a ricochet, and I think it kind of fools a few people in the middle, but nonetheless, it falls to Jota, and he's got nobody really around him, and you see Hall sort of on Russian, and then he does that turn swivel thing as the ball's kicked, and maybe I'm just too old for this sort of shit, but like just as I think keepers should be catching the ball if it's in their hands instead of palming it, I don't like seeing blockers, defenders, whoever they might be, coming towards the ball to try and block it, turning the backs, twisting, basically making themselves smaller. Like you're either making yourself smaller or you're taking another ball where the guy can just cut inside and leave you like looking like an absolute lemon. Yeah. Like you need to be eyes on and you need to be making yourself as big as possible. I don't give a shit if it hits you in the cock. Frankly, I don't give a damn if the ball stays out of that net. That's all that should matter. You're doing your job. That's fine. And I think, on Hall, I think he had a pretty good game. I think he's getting better. I'm visibly seeing him getting better. I thought he was pretty poor in the first game, but I'm starting to see him getting a little bit better. But that goal, and Silva had a good game as well, actually. And he bloody enjoyed it as well afterwards. He was like kind of, it's almost like it was that World Cup 66 pose, wasn't it? Where he's like, wasn't on shoulders, but he was getting lifted up and he was like, So he enjoyed that. He had a good game. But I
I
think
look the
I
goal
think
to
it
me
could have been
though.
better with. It could have been done
y-
better.
y-
Could have been
If
defended
you
better.
if you get that shot 90% of the time, that's going into Rosette. Like he hits it, and it's not a clean shot, so to speak. He hits it with power, but that could easily have gone anywhere. So I do think like it was a little bit of luck in there, a little bit of skill as well, but I'm not convinced that some players don't put that out for a throw in probably half the time.
Well, I mean,
Look,
it was a good
and
goal.
on Hall, I'm kind of some of the social media stuff today has been suggesting, he's really error prone, and I kind of leapt to his defense a little bit on Twix. To me, he's a 19-year-old playing in defense. He's going to make mistakes. He's going to need to learn from those mistakes, but he needs to play games to learn from them. And so you kind of need to accept it. And it's one of those things where we've been so starved of good young talent coming through playing Premier League games, but making mistakes and learning from them is part and parcel of developing as a player. And it's just that because he's a defender, you notice more because usually it ends up creating chances for the opposition.
No,
It's if he's a forward and he completely cocks up, oh well, you've lost the ball, but no harm, no foul.
yeah, no, exactly. You're very visible. You're very exposed when you make a mistake in your kind of area, which is always at the back for a defender. But as I said, I think I'm seeing signs of him and actually the rest of the team really starting to kind of connect a little bit. It's still very far away, don't get me wrong, from being perfect, but whereas in the first game, Hall was doing almost absolutely everything he could to hand the win or hand the goal to Southampton, it seemed at times when he was doing, like he'd lost his head almost. He was just doing all kinds of ridiculous things and turning over every single 5 minutes, every single other touch, sorry. He was a bit better against Bournemouth, and then I think he was better again today. He's shown. I hope that if he gets this run in the team, like if Trippier doesn't take his spot or something, then I think we will see real progress from Hull. I've actually been on that fence. I've not really seen enough from Hull since he's been here, and he hasn't played that much, frankly. But to really think he's going to be top quality, but he is young. I forget. It's easy to forget he's only 19.
Yeah.
We weren't allowed to forget about Lewis Miley being 17, but nobody seems to mention it about Lewis Hall because maybe it's because we bought him from Chelsea rather than brought him through the ranks. But he needs time, and it can only do him good by getting a run in the team. Every player needs a run in the team sometimes.
No, for sure. So obviously we kind of had a bit of a nervy bit around that goal, and to be fair to Forest, they pressed us and they pushed us and they kind of created some more chances on the counter attack, and they sort of passed the ball through the defense a couple of times where we were caught out of position. We made some changes. We saw the game out pretty strongly. I thought moving Barnes to the right hand side with Gordon coming on the left, I thought that worked really well. I know Barnes didn't really create an awful lot going forward, but I thought he made some very clever runs. I thought he actually took the ball forward, and if you actually go back and watch some of his runs, he's kind of made that effort to get forward, but there's actually not a lot going on in the box for him to cross balls to. So he's always got to sort of like seemingly hold up play, cross back, pass it back to someone else. And it looks like he's not doing anything, but I think he's just like, everyone needs to get on the same wavelength to move forward at the same time that he's getting the ball. But look, penalties, never great. It's always a little bit of a nervy time to go. And I don't like penalties deciding matches, but in this case, yes, 100% totally glad we didn't need any more time added onto that game and playing extra time. The one penalty that we missed, Joe Linton, basically kicked it straight at the keeper. But you and I both were saying in the group chat,
didn't look right.
He did not look confident going up to that to take that penalty at all, did he?
See it in his face, but he'd had one of those kind of days where he wasn't quite getting everything right. Again, like against Bournemouth, he was awful, which is weird because he started off like a house on fire against Saints. But I think, I mean, you could see when he was walking up to the ball, his face did not look like
No, it did not look
a
confident at
person
all.
who was confident that he was going to do. But having said that, he hit it hard enough. He hit it well enough. He got good connection.
Yeah.
It's just
It
a
was just that
freaking
perfect height for
giant.
the keeper, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that giant behind in the sticks. It was able to guess right, and he's got the height and what have you to keep it out. Fortunately, it didn't cost us. Bruno was up next, which kind of settled everybody
Yes.
down again. You know,
Everyone.
even though he did that stutter and run up, and I was like, oh my god, he's doing the stutter and run up. I fucking hate them. And he starts away, and then he goes mental with the fans. You know, which he absolutely loves it. But no, Joe just did not look right about that.
No.
About that penalty.
Forest did miss another one where I can't remember who took it, but they hit the crossbar pretty hard, pretty solidly as well. It was very well struck penalty, but unfortunately just didn't quite have the accuracy. But say what you want about Joe Linton's penalty miss, anything apart from what Awani, I think his name is, I think his ball is still somewhere circling around the atmosphere. It's one of those penalties that like he's tried to clear it out of the stadium by the looks of things rather than actually get into the goal. Absolutely shocking penalty. But that then let the star of the moment, Billy Big Balls himself, is Sean Longstaff. The pressure on that kid, like kid anymore, but the pressure on him, given all the shit that he gets on social media, given all of the pressure that's on him, given how everyone constantly says he's not good enough, shouldn't be playing, given that Tonali's back now and the pressure to keep his place is clearly going to be under threat. To step up under that, to take that decisive penalty and take it really well. I thought the penalty he took was absolutely superb. Straight into the net and wheels off in celebration. How good was it to see Longstaff get that penalty and score it with aplomb? I mean, he basically took it brilliantly.
Yeah, he sold the keeper, sent him the wrong direction. Did he sold him a keeper? Sold the keeper a keeper. That's not easy to say. No, I'm pleased for Longy. He has that ability to not really be sometimes not be noticeable in the game. Like you don't really see him being mentioned quite a lot by the commentators and so on. But then he'll do something amazing. He'll be like, "Oh, that's right, Longy's in this team." And other times he'll do like stupid shit and it doesn't work out. Like every other player. He said afterwards, he was interviewed afterwards, and he said he didn't have the pressure. He didn't feel it. He thought it was an actual pressureless situation, because in his mind he said, if I missed, there was always a chance.
Yeah,
there'd be another way of going, because it was sudden death, so there was always a chance someone else could have a go, which is an interesting way of looking at it, because I would have been like shitting my pants, but it was nice, because I was thinking, oh my god, he's going to balls it, and then he just sort of like casually rolls it into the other side, and I'm like, all right, yeah, fair enough. That was actually all right, Sean, well done, mate. And all the fans and all the players celebrate like we've just won the cup.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. I think you commented this morning about Bruno and how awesome he is. The way he reacted at the final whistle after we won the penalties, he's over to the fans. He's celebrating like we've just won the cup. He's going absolutely batshit. Like, how good is it to have someone that passionate about the club on that field representing all the fans?
And I think it's brilliant, and I think he's really kind of carrying that captain's armband at the moment as well. I think I wouldn't be surprised if he feels really honoured to carry that armband, which might be a bit of a cliche. It's only just a band around your arm, and who knows what a captain really does during a game? Doesn't seem like much half the time, but for what it might mean to someone from Brazil who's been here for only a few seasons, really, to be given the responsibility to lead out the team and to be the boss on the pitch, and then to be the cheerleader at the same time. Like when he feels the team needs a lift, he's there. He's waving his arms. He's egging on the fans to give the team some energy. And if that's all the captain has to do, then he's doing a fantastic job, because we need it sometimes, man. Like, especially this season, we've looked like we've needed that injection from the fans. And I thought the fans today were absolutely terrific, as well. But Bruno, man, he's just pumped. He's absolutely mad. He loves it. Absolutely loves it.
The guy's going to have an embolism if we actually ever win anything.
I think we all will.
But look, I had a couple of slides that I completely forgot to put up on the video, but we do have the final statistics to show. It's a little bit wonky. Don't adjust your sets. It is a screenshot off the TV. I'm blaming Lee for being half asleep when he took it this morning.
I'll do it quick.
But look, I've seen people call our performance shite. I've seen people criticize the performance. Now, are we playing really well? Are we playing at our best? Far from it. Are we playing really good football? At times not. But if you have a look at the statistics from this game, we've basically had 14 shots to 12, but 7 of ours to 3 of theirs has been on target. We won the possession game. We had more passing accuracy in this game as well, by the way. We've got more corners. It's not like we were completely out of the game. So do you see these statistics and think that, yes, you don't always put it onto statistics because apparently someone was showing stats about Tonali going, oh, this is why he's rusty because he's been out for so long, when I thought he was absolutely brilliant. And he hasn't really, he's missed a chance and he's kind of misplaced a couple of passes trying like those, like those wonder balls through to players to create a goal scoring chance for them. But I thought he had an absolutely fantastic game. So statistics are not everything, but I think those stats there tell a story that, we're not playing shite. We're not playing at our best, but it can't be 6-1 against Spurs every week.
I mean, it can be starting this weekend if they like, and then not. That's
Hopefully.
fine. Yeah, look, I mean, we comfortably won the possession start 60-40 almost. So, and I was thinking about this before we came on. I was thinking, like, what would be did I think in my head, did I think that we deserved to win that game? And I think we probably edged it. I think we probably just did about enough to edge it. We had the better shots on, well, I mean, they weren't all that great, to be honest. We had 14 and 7 on target, 50% on target ratio, but not particularly great shots all the time. But nonetheless, if you're taking 14 shots, half of them are on target, sooner or later, one of them's going to go in, and then maybe there's another one, and then maybe there's another one. That's all you can do most of the time. If you're not making those shots is when you want to be worried about it. If you're not challenging in the defense, if you're not testing the keeper, that's when you can sort of really say, look, the stats bear out what we think this team is like. We didn't play very well today because we didn't do anything. We didn't threaten the keeper. Today it was not like that. I think we did all right. I think we're getting better. I think we're getting better.
Yeah, so this is my thing. It's like when it's a Man United or a Liverpool and they scrape these sorts of results, and there's always that cliche of like, oh, good teams, they always manage to find a way to get a result even if they're not playing well. But we're like, well, you're not playing well and you're lucky and you've just scraped through. And it's like, well, hang on a bit. It's like you can't have it both ways. So to me, it's like it's a little bit disrespectful to Newcastle in terms of what they're actually managing to work for. It's like you're not going to play perfect football all the time, and we're clearly not playing the best that we can. We know that. There are performances and we're giving the ball away a lot and we're misplacing passes that should be going to players. But at the same time, we're still grinding out results. And so if we can grind out results when we're not playing well, at some stage, you want to hope that things are going to click, and then we're going to start playing really well, and we're going to start to punish those teams and start really putting some scores together. But do you not feel, and this is something that not just for this game, but also for the first 2 games of the season, to be honest, do you not feel it's a little bit disrespectful of the clubs that we're playing to just assume that because they're not a Champions League club or not a European club and they're not a top half side, that somehow like we should just be rolling them over? Because to me, these are the teams that are always going to be harder because they're set up to fight for everything.
Yeah, I mean, yes, the answer is yes. Obviously, it is disrespectful to the opposition, but this is nothing new. This has been going on since the dawn of time with football. Like, as soon as you get a little bit of success, you expect success, and maybe the club could have managed expectations better somehow along the line. I mean, it was always going to be one of those things that we had to be mindful of, especially when we did so well in the second season and getting Champions League, and expectations had to be managed to try and dampen down the fever, from the fan base that might put pressure on Newcastle, the team itself, and the management and everybody else. Maybe that wasn't as successful as it could have been. However, that might have looked. I mean, how do you even do that with a fan base that can just jump onto Twitter and spout shit from anywhere in the world without any consequences? I mean, how do you manage that expectation as such? I do think we should be beating Southampton. I do think we should be beating Bournemouth. I do think we should be beating Forest. But the reality is this team isn't quite clicking yet. And you're quite right. I mean, for a team that's not clicking properly, and people like Isak, he was giving the ball away all over the place today. I didn't see anyone complain about him, but Tonali gets the shit for making a few loose passes when he hasn't played for 12 months. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
But this team is getting results. We are grinding them out. Now, what's it going to be like, do you think, if we get beasted by Spurs on a weekend? What is the social media landscape, hellscape going to look like? What's the reaction going to be to that? Because it's a fairly good possibility.
Yeah. But having said that, we've said, and I've said this earlier today, is we've seen this previously where we're expected to beat the lower half sides that are deemed not good enough, and we should be getting 3 points off them. But they're the ones that are playing their hearts and souls out. They're making it tough. They're fighting for every ball. They're making it uncomfortable for us. And when we're not on form and we're not playing well, then obviously that's going to make our lives all the more difficult. And that's kind of contributing to us losing the ball, I think. But we've seen it before where then we go into a game against a Spurs, against a Man United or a Man City, and we actually play really well because those teams want to play football. So they're not as much in your face trying to play physical football. It's normally us that do that to them. So there's kind of like these almost little mini battles within the league in terms of like, well, we're better than them, but we're getting beat off them, but we should be getting beat off them, but we're actually competing really well because we're getting more time and space on the ball. And we can afford to hurt them. So, and I mean, it's let's be fair. Like we'll touch on Spurs in a minute, but look, I've seen things on social media today about Gordon not being happy. I think and people are really scraping to look for stuff that's wrong. There's a lot of stuff still swirling around about him. And the having his head turned by Liverpool and stuff like that, and because he walked off after the final penalty to the Forest game, I think he went over to talk to the Forest players more than anything, but he was still seen celebrating with the fans after it. He still looked happy enough. So like to me, I think the fan base as a whole, it's been a rocky summer. I'm not going to lie. It's probably just a bit of bubbling over of emotions that things are not going right in the transfer market. I think we all hoped that things would be right. Look, if we get humped off Spurs and we finish the transfer window with absolutely no new signings, I think it'll be an absolute shit show on social media, and I'm probably going to mute the whole thing for a week or so. If we manage to pull off a victory against Spurs, we manage to put a deadline day deal together for a centre back and a right winger, everything's going to be rosy, and we're suddenly going to win the league again. It's always that roller coaster.
It's the fickle nature of every football fan base in the country, one way or another. At some point, they'll always do this. And saying things like these teams are going to fight for everything and get in your faces, that's a bit disrespectful. I mean, every team has money to spend. Every team has a scouting network. More and more of these teams are bringing in real decent players that you might. So sometimes, and I'm guilty of this as much as anyone, I'll see the name come up on a team sheet, the club that we're playing next, and I'll be like, oh, yeah, we should be beating them because it's X team. But they have quality in that team, and a lot of these teams have really good managers as well. So there's that kind of prejudice almost that because they used to be shit once upon a time, that they'll still be shit now. And it's just not that way. It's not that way anymore.
And playing away from home,
and playing away from home, so that's never easy either. But hopefully we get something. Even if we don't get anything out the Spurs game, which I think we're going to go into next, I would be happy enough, I think, with a performance that looks like we've progressed. In the last 3 games, I'm starting to see little signs here and there, but we're still some way off. But if we can muster ourselves and really have a go against Spurs and give the fans something to believe in, and hopefully that'll just quieten things down a little bit, even if we don't get the result.
Yeah, for sure. So let's do a very speedy 10 minutes on the Spurs game. Look forward to the weekend's game. So we're looking ahead to this game. It's a home game for us. So obviously, we've said it since the takeover. Home form has been key for us. We've been pretty hard to beat at St James's Park. I think that's pretty safe to say. We're starting to see not only players in the first team that we're happy with, a decent starting lineup, but we're actually starting to see strength on the bench now as well. So we're actually able to, apart from Willett going down injured, obviously that's a big blow for us. But we've got strength on the bench now, and that's a huge thing for Howe to be able to freshen things up, bring fresh legs on to run at tired defenders. So it gives us that opportunity and like just to kind of waste some time, sort of roll the clock back down and hopefully just disrupt the game enough if we need to. Look, we've put this together in terms of a Newcastle starting lineup. We're not going to go through the Spurs lineup. I don't know enough about them at this stage of the season to know exactly who's likely to be playing. I think Solanke's still a bit 50-50 whether or not he's going to be fit enough to play against us, which is good in my opinion. I think the less we have to deal with some of the top strikers in the league, the better it will be for all of us. So look, we've kind of put this together. So Pope in goal, Hall, Byrne, Kelly, and Tino at the back. Kelly's probably the one that's going to be up for debate on this, whether or not Kraft retains his position. And then we've got Big Joe, Bruno, and Longy back in midfield with Gordon, Isak, and Murphy up top. Run us through your thoughts on this. Do you see Tonali starting over Longy? And do you see Barnes getting a run out instead of Murphy on their right wing?
I see. I always thought Barnes would be down left and Gordon right. I've said that in the last one, and I'm surprised that. I mean, he did actually start left, if I'm not mistaken. I think he switched at some point in today's game, but he can at least punt the ball across from his right foot down the right hand side, whereas he normally has to cut in on the left and then take one of those kind of shots from the corner of the box to the far post. So it could happen. I guess when I was looking at this, I was thinking, who's just played 90 plus minutes and took some penalties, and does Eddie want to give them a little bit of a rest and start with some other players come Saturday? I think that's what he had in mind for Bruno, but obviously with Willock going off, he had to play him from like the first 15 minutes. So probably don't have a great deal of option there with Willock getting injured as well. So I guess that bit is kind of locked in. Longy, I think, will start above Tonali just because that's his first 60 minutes. I cannot imagine he would start him in a league game at this stage. But as we've discussed earlier on, probably will see him at some stage in the second half, unless, disaster happens and he has to come on sooner. Kelly, again, Kraft started and played this whole game, if I'm not mistaken, against Forest. And he played against Bournemouth, didn't he, as well, I think?
Yeah.
So with him playing midweek, I kind of wonder if Kelly would be taking his place just to give him a little bit of a breather, a little bit of squad rotation. It's hard to know. Eddie Howe could just look at that and go, you know what, Crafty did all right. I'll let you keep your place, which is often what you expect to happen with players who are playing well. But squad rotation has to be a part of our season. That we cannot go through another injury-wrecked season like last season. And we're already off to a frigging flyer with Willock, aren't we? So I would imagine that he might want to rotate some positions, even if you would prefer the other player. I don't know for sure, but my thought was that getting Kelly in, he's already played him in a few games now. Get him in to start with at least, and then maybe if you need to bring on Kraft later on. Hall and Tino, they both played a fair amount as well. I think Tino came on as the sub, but Hall played the whole game. So I'm kind of saying, like, Kraft shouldn't be in the middle because he played the whole game. But then I'm kind of saying, well, Hall will. But that might be more down to the fact that who else would you play in the left and the right? Potentially Trippier, who played 60 odd minutes and came off. So might look at him and say, well, he can take the place of Hall and give Hall the rest. It just depends. It just depends on, because it was quite a strong team against Forest. So it's like, it wasn't a weakened team where you're keeping your best for the weekend. It was like, that's mostly our full team with a few tweaks here and there. Is he going to keep that mostly the same for this game against Spurs, or is he going to bring some changes in to allow these other players to have a rest? I don't know. I mean, you could even put Miggy down the right instead of Murphy. Who knows? I mean, Miggy played a fair bit of this game as well, didn't he? So 60 odd minutes as well. So there's a lot of players who are getting 60 minutes in the legs. It just depends on whether or not he thinks they're in the position where they can start a game yet. Or if he wants someone else in there just for fresh legs, I don't know. One thing we can guarantee, it'll be Isak up top though.
Yep.
Who else was sticking there?
There's not a lot else there. To me, it's like you don't want to be chopping and changing for Spurs. You're going to want to play your strongest possible lineup for them. Unless there's a master plan of some impetus off the bench, maybe. But look, for me, play your strongest starting 11, tweak it as you need to. As I said, we've got a little bit of strength coming in on the bench now. We can make some changes that can actually affect games now, rather than just go out there and save someone else's legs. But yeah, look, I'd be happy if that was the starting lineup. As I said, I think Kraft will probably start. I think he's played pretty well the last few games, so obviously he's going to start this game and make a monumental cock up or something now that I've put the jinx on him. But hopefully not. I mean, he's actually sort of been pretty solid at the back there as well. So, but look, Spurs.
All I'd say though is that Kraft is out of position, whereas Kelly isn't. But Kelly's new, so there's that kind of balance.
Kelly's a left back, isn't he? He's a left-sided centre back or a left back.
Centre left. So yeah. So, whereas Kraft is really just a fullback in my mind, anyway. Anyway, sorry, just dive in there.
Yeah. Anyway, look, Spurs at home. It is a home game. So as I've mentioned before, I think our home record speaks for itself. I think we are very, very difficult to beat at home unless the crowd starts to get edgy or we start to get hammered pretty early on. And then I think things will start getting a little bit sour, especially with all of the transfer stuff hanging over our heads. I think fans will need a bit of a pick-me-up. Sometimes I think we've all said this, that the crowd can be that 12th man. But how important do you think it's going to be for us to get off to a good start in this game? As I said, not necessarily winning from the start, or not necessarily hammering them again, but just making sure that there's signs of life there, that we're starting to get things clicking, because sometimes the crowd need the players to give them something back as well. And at the moment, that feels the case.
No, absolutely. I want to see some cohesion. I want to see more cohesion in the way this team plays. Against Bournemouth, it was like a bunch of strangers half the time. And I mean, you couldn't take much out of the Southampton game, except there was a lot of determination, a lot of grit, but we were down to 10 men. So it was hard to really draw any conclusions, but the Bournemouth game was really disappointing. We are back home. We do have the crowd. The crowd can be silenced pretty easily if you start playing like strangers. And that's kind of what I really hope that we don't see. I want to see us stringing passes together. I want to see us making runs, being found by clever, intelligent through balls and all that kind of really nice stuff. I want to see Isak getting service. I want to see Isak taking shots. Because if you do that for Isak, he is going to score them. He is lethal. And I wouldn't mind seeing a bit of an uptick in the likes of Gordon as well. I mean, he had a bit of a funny old summer where he didn't really play much and he sort of sat on his arse a bit, but he would have still trained, So I want to see improvements in the levels as much as anything. And the score, I mean, it's a league game, so it does matter, but it kind of almost, the way we've been starting this season, it kind of almost isn't the most important thing for me. The most important thing is, are we getting better? Are we getting towards that team that we know we can be, but we're just not there yet? That's what I want to see. And if we can do that through the game, I think the crowd will stick with us, no problem. And you never know. If you're still in the game, you can nick it.
Yeah. I think the big thing for me is we look like we're a couple of weeks short of preseason. We just look behind schedule, and maybe that's because we went to Japan and it was like 99% humidity and 39 degrees or something stupid like that, and that's obviously going to have limited the amount of training and certainly fitness work, which is what you want from that stage of your preseason. You just want to be flogging the players to death to get their fitness levels up. We've also had a few key players back off international duty. A few players have had a few niggles as well, I think, along the way. Joe Linton had his wedding and his honeymoon, so came back and was obviously massively out of shape, been partying too much, and Bruno was off there with him. So look, I think, and it sort of seems to be all of those are the players that are a bit inconsistent, a little bit behind the levels that we would expect them to be at the moment. So, you know, as you said, there are definitely signs there that it's improving. So just a little quick note though, we'll get a final prediction from both of us. But look, at the end of the day, I think a lot of this game is going to come down to what Ange does. Ange is very stubborn. He will play Ange ball and be very proud of Ange ball when it works. He will not sully Ange ball even when it doesn't work. And it's safe to say that the last couple of times we've played them, it has not worked to an epic degree. We've been very dominant. We've exploited the high defense line that they want to play. We've been able to run in behind them, score goals freely. I'm hoping that he sticks to his game plan and expects to still win, because I think that's our best way of actually winning. What's your prediction for the game, and what do you think Ange is going to do for it?
Well, we know what Ange will do for it. It'll just be all-out attacking, lots of pace, and you've got the likes of Son getting some goals. You've got Maddison, who looks like he's hit the ground running this season. Very dangerous, very clever. What I really don't want us to see is the mid to low block as soon as we're out of possession. We seem to be doing that this season, and I bloody hate it. I want to see us pressing, and I want to see us pressing in gangs, in groups of people, not just one bloke going and doing a run, right? And then everyone else just sitting back and not following up, because that's not how Eddie Howe's team was when he first arrived or the season after. That's how we got into these amazing league positions. That's how we got the Champions League. It was by hunting in packs, if you like, and closing people down as a team and pushing up. And yes, I know teams have adapted, and I know they've changed their tactics. And if you look at Bournemouth, their tactic was quite clearly just to kick the crap out of us and break up the play and everything. And it worked really well, frankly. And I think Southampton did that as well.
Yeah, pretty
and
much.
Even not Forest, actually. Even Forest were doing it a bit, and the referee was letting some of that go. So, you know, I wouldn't imagine necessarily the same from Spurs, but I want to see us take the impetus to Spurs rather than, you know, fucking pass the ball back to Pope, who just punts it long straight back to bloody Spurs, and then they just come at us again, and we then just get further and further and further and further back, and all the impetus gets taken away from us. The crowd goes flat, and then you're just sitting there waiting for the inevitable. I do not want to see that. I would like to see us take on I want to see us get behind them, get in that space, and really give them something to think about where they have to move themselves back. I want them to go back a little bit. I don't want them to be constantly coming forward, because that's just a recipe for disaster. So I think Spurs will come at us, and I think we probably will end up just sitting back a lot in this game. I think we'll concede possession and try and hit on the break as a counter attack, which is ridiculous at home, but I kind of feel like that's how we are at the minute. And we'll just have to hope that our defensive solidity remains intact. I suspect it's going to be a tough game. So obviously, I think we're going to win 3-2.
Look, I agree with you. The high press, the intensity. You know, we all saw the Amazon documentary. It's like intensity is our identity. That's definitely gone. There's no intensity to our play at the moment. We seem to be sitting back, soaking up pressure. Whether or not that's just that we've started the season slowly, and other teams are kind of, you know, effectively, as you said, bullying us almost off the ball, and we're not coping with that very well. You'd like to think that you're going to get less of that against a more free-flowing team like Spurs under Ange. But look, to me, I think you're right. We need to get at them from the get-go. We need to be the Southamptons. We need to be the Bournemouths against them almost, and really get in their face, try to win the ball back high up the pitch. Don't let them settle on it. Try and force some mistakes. And I think if they do start trying to play a high line, then, you know, it wouldn't surprise me if we manage to get a couple of quick goals again, just purely and simply because we do have that pace in behind. And, you know, we need Isak to be on form. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win, just because we are at home, and I'm desperate to see us actually try and put the first couple of games to bed. So naturally, I think we're going to probably end up losing now that I've predicted that. My prediction is not great. So look, I'd be happy with a draw from it, to be honest, the way we've been playing. But as you said, as long as we can see some improvement, I think that's the main thing. But look, we've gone a bit over time, so apologies to anyone who's already probably tuned out by now, but apologies to everyone who's still watching. Thank you for joining us. Look, we're thinking of maybe starting to get some fan feedback, some questions and answers for these podcasts to answer. So feel free to drop us some messages on social media, drop us an email, whatever you want to do, and we'll try and actually get some fan interaction going on here throughout the season. So thanks very much to Lee. Hopefully we're well, I don't know when we're back on, but hopefully whoever's doing the review pod on the post Spurs game is celebrating 3 points, or I'll just take a couple of extra points in my fantasy football at the moment. Not doing too well this season so far, so no surprises there. But cheers, Matt, and I will catch up with you again soon.
Thanks, Mark. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.